Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to this series on how to build threads from scratch. Right before we get into this episode, just a reminder, if you go to reactnative.com/threads, soon the full course with all the source code will be available. So sign up and if you want to get notified. But in today's episode, we're going to go over adding liked functionality, adding some functionality to these bottom buttons. Right now, they don't do anything. It's just the whole thing is clickable and you go to the thread. But the first thing we're going to tackle is adding likes. Since the last couple episodes, we added all the functionality to the post itself. We want to actually interact with a post after it's already been made. So first thing we're going to do is update our schema. To be able to add a like, we want to add a new model. Let's just name it like. And the ID of at defaults db generated UUID generated v4. And finally, this is honestly the first time we're going to use that ID string. In the last episode, we're using the name as the ID because that's unique. In place, we're using the Google ID as the ID since that's unique to that Google post. On the post, we're creating on the front end. On user, it's the ID from the Superbase user because there's our user database and then the user generated from Superbase. So we're just creating on a model. Finally, we're using this db generate UUID generate version 4, which is from the extension UUID-OSSP, which we need because we're using Superbase. It comes default on Postgres database, but for Superbase, we need to add an extension. And then with that, we're going to have that user ID. So if you like a photo, you want to put your user ID on that, and it's going to be associated with a user. And the association is going to be this user ID has to match this field. And then that references the ID on the user right here. And then cascade. Of course, if you delete a user, then you want to delete the likes as well. Same thing for post. We have this post ID. So both are required, user ID and post ID. Otherwise, this table is pointless if it's not required. It's associated with a post on post ID here, and then the ID of the post itself, and the same thing on Cascade. And the next thing we need to do is add likes, and then, no, not comments, not there yet, just yet. So we just need to add likes, actually. Oh, and then on user too, of course. So we have the association of likes. So I don't know why I lowercase this one. That's going to be a little confusing. You could do either lowercase or uppercase, but since I uppercased all of them down here, so you know what? I like lowercase better. So this might change the whole database and remove everything we just created. You know what? I'll come back to this. Maybe this is a cleanup one. I don't want to change everything just yet. But for this user, I am going to lowercase it. And so this array means this user can have multiple likes, of course. And I also want to make it lowercase down here too. And I'll probably come back to this one, but I don't want to change it too much just yet. Okay, so let's run npx Prisma format first. So remember, we're going to stop. We're good to go. And then we can do npx Prisma db push. And then if we go to the table, we should have a new table of likes. And again, same thing. To unlock it, let's run this public permissions. And we go back. I keep doing this because I see on Reddit posts that it's like the most asked question on Superbase subreddit. So what the hell is going on with RLS? Okay, so let's rerun it. And then what we want to do is first we could update our post query. If we go to our hooks, we have this use posts, and this you get post gets called on this homepage when it reappears. And right now, the only association we have is star, so all the information on the post. the associated user, and the associated place name. The query needs to include the uppercase version of it, so I think maybe that's why I had it for consistency purposes, but it's referencing two different things. So when we go model, when we do this query, it has to match the model name, which should be uppercase. And then on the lowercase part of it is when we call item, let's say item.post.likes, that will be undercase. So we do want to differentiate the differences between those two. All right, so now we're getting our post still, but none of them are going to have likes. So now we have to add the ability to add a like to that post. So let's go to our view and make it pressable. Adding for ChatGPT for now because screw it. Okay. We're just going to add an empty pressable event on all of these. I guess that's fine. As long as it doesn't remove some more information like it happened last time. Okay, so right now the heart on press, we want to add a new function called add like. And then we want to import Superbase. I don't like the uppercase part. Await Superbase from, so remember this matches the model name, uppercase. Insert user ID. So it's not actually going to be the item user ID. So this, right now, it's a little confusing. This is why you might want to create two different users to create a bunch of posts and then associate it who's liking it, because we're just going to be liking our own stuff. So user ID would be one and the same, but we actually want to do user from use auth from our auth provider. Oh, why did I had it right? There you go. So this is going to be the person logged in is the person liking it. So it's going to be their user ID, not the item, which is the post. And then the ID of the post. So I'm logged in as Tim. So I want my ID and I'm going to this post and the ID of the post. So let's make sure that's all we need. So we have user ID and it'll get associated with the user, and then post ID and it'll get associated with the post. Created that gets automatically generated. ID gets automatically generated. So it should be good to go now. If I could find where we just were at. Okay, so add, and then we're just going to console log data and error. Okay, let's try to like this. No, which is good. Remember, it's no because we're not doing dot select. We don't necessarily need it right here. And then we have our ID. So we got the ID that was created, the user ID, so our ID that liked it, and then the post ID. But now we need to show that the person actually liked it. So what we could do is color gray. We want to do fill item.likes.length is greater than 0. No, that's not going to be the case. See how it's lowercase now? This is technically correct. But then this means it's going to make a red fill if it has more than, if anyone liked it. And then if we reload, what we have to do is we're already doing the query, but it's not going to reload right away. So item.likes, let's just console log item.likes, undefined item. It's still uppercase here. Item dot. Okay, we have this item. Item dot, yeah. Okay, we're gonna want to fix this, but for right, it's just we want to be able to show that, okay, our ID. So when it's checked to see if the array contains our user ID, so we don't really need all this other information, post ID. So we go to post, and we could just do user ID, and then load, and it should just show, yeah, user ID. mean, if we're not going to use all the information, we don't need to return it. So. And then we're going to go back to the view. Okay, so we don't want to just check if the length is greater than 0. We want to check that maybe we want to do this up here. So const is light, and we could do item dot like dot sum, where the user ID of that equals our user ID that we're logged in as. Yeah, looks right. And then let's just replace this down here. So it should still be the same. So that allows us to do down here as well. So we want to do is light gray, otherwise red. See the outside of the cart. That's what we want to do. I have it reversed though. There we go. All right, so now we want to actually be able to remove a like as well. So here we can do, if it's already liked, then we want to call a remove like function. And if it's not, then we want to call a add like function. So let's do const remove like. And then we got to find delete, where our user ID equals user.id and post ID equals the item ID. Okay, so now let's click it. We'll know that it worked, but it's not going to show it on the front end right away because it doesn't re-query the database to show that updated query. So if we reload, then it should show an empty heart. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so in order to show it right away, instead of having to manually reload, we could call get refetch. So remember on, let's see. Remember we have on this use post, we have this refetch call, which we're calling on reload. So if we were to do this, so let's click the like and then call reload, then it shows the little heart icon. So we could actually pass this down to the post view. And then let's import it. And then we could call it on each one. So there. One other thing I thought was cool, actually, if we go to Expo Haptics, to give more feedback to the user, you can install Expo Haptics, which kind of does like a short vibration of the phone on any type of action. So we're going to install that. And then also call that when you add and remove it, because it's like a main action that someone likes, and it's nice to give the user feedback. So in order to call that, there's a couple of different ways, and you can just do haptics notification async, impact async. So you could decide like the heaviness, I guess, or the impact feed style, what is it they call it. So it's very light, medium, heavy, rigid. I don't know what the difference between light and soft is. That sounds like the same, but you can play around with it and see what you're looking for. So let's just do medium. And of course, this isn't going to work on, let's put it first. Of course, this is going to work on the emulator, so you're going to have to you have to go to build on the app to check this out. And you could even change it so that maybe liking it is heavy and then removing a like is light, because you don't want people to remove likes. I don't know. So I just think it's a nice little touch. Let's run again. Okay, so since there's no way for me to show you how to test this, there's nothing viewable here. It's just some feedback extra to add to this game. Add like. The next thing we want to do is do a repost. So reposting is, I did this. This is another thing I did a couple different ways. So when you're reposting, you're basically just showing the original content creator. So like Tim you're going to show all their same information. But you want to show it, or we're going to want to show it eventually on our profile of reposting means like I liked something and I thought it was helpful and I want to post it on my feed, but I still want to show all the original information. And so how I did this was we're just going to repost almost all the same information. And then we're going to add just one line that has repost user ID so that we could query that when we want to show specific items that we've reposted. And I'm just going to put it in the same post table. And that's so that I don't have to do a different query to be like, okay, get all the posts, then get all the reposts, and then order them by date because we still want to show the most recent information, and then merge those two arrays. It's just not a very clean way to do it. You could say the way I'm about to do it is not super clean either, but I just think it's a lot faster and more scalable because you want to treat a repost just like you would a regular post, but you just want to be able to differentiate to the front end user. And so we can remove this stuff since we're not using it. Or actually, if no error, then refetch. I'm gonna add this back actually. There we go. Okay, so what does that look like? So we're gonna add another new column. And we're gonna do repost user ID. And you could associate it with a user, but I didn't because in threads, there's only one really scenario that reposting is being used. It's on the home feed, which you don't need all the information of the user. So you could add the relation. I don't think I'm going to. It's just going to be a string that we query on. And fixes any errors. And then npx prisma db push. And of course it's optional because most of the time this is going to be empty. And then let's rerun. So this is one of those things that if you want to add more functionality to it, you could just join on the user. I just don't want to do too much overkill, too many joins to the user, especially when we're not going to use it at all. So I'm just going to leave it as a string field. But to add a repost, let's make this button pressable. So let's go back to view. Remember, we put a pressable thing on everything already. Honestly, in the message circle, we could just do a router.push thread because it does the same exact thing that the overall item does. Then we could remove this pressable, and maybe we might eventually do that, but this router does the same thing. So if we were to click this icon, and even if we were to click this, it goes to the same place. Both areas you can click reply. And then repost. So repost doesn't do anything just yet. So let's call add repost, which doesn't exist. So let's create it. So add, what? I don't need the haptics for this one. So here, update. No, that's not what we want. Let's ignore this. Okay, so we're going to add our repost functionality. And honestly, this is where I'm a little conflicted because I want it to show up in the main feed. But if we do it, and let me type it out first so it makes sense. Data. If we do it the way I'm going to do it is just copying all the information from this post. So you could just do like item. Console log, new post. And then repost user ID equals user.id and console log this post. So if we were to repost this thing, it would show exactly the same information, the same parent ID, but it would have a different regular ID in general. So we would have to create a new ID here. crypto random UUID. Do we have crypto in here? No. Oh, it's capital C crypto. So this would be where you wanted to maybe create your own thing on add a repost. If you wanted to add more real functionality to reposting, what I'm trying to accomplish is just being able to show it as a different line here. So I want to be able to do, let's see, where should we put it? I want to show it right above the user information. So HStack, no, I don't want it in HStack. And I want this to be in another HStack actually, username. It's a little confusing because we're logged in as the same user, but maybe a little smaller, black, bold. I don't know if that's yeah, it's just stroke less 12. So I just wanted to be able to differentiate this as a repost. Obviously right now it's showing everything as a repost. So it'd be like if item.report user ID exists. So none of them have it. So we would show that otherwise. So just to show it again. This is all I'm trying to do. You might want to add an association so that you can show that person's username. So maybe we will update the schema to add report user associated with this report user ID and then this field. But maybe this is a good example, but if we do this, it's going to yell at us. And that's because we have we're referencing the same model for user and report user, which is why I originally didn't put this as the association. So in order to fix that, you're going to have to clearly differentiate the two. So here we could put user and username post at relation to user. And then we would have to do the same line to, repost. And this would have to be different than this field. So maybe it can't be user. Repost user. I think that makes sense. So you have to differentiate the relation between the two, or else it's going to be conflicted. So it says like error validating model post ambiguous relation detected. And it's ambiguous because you have two fields referencing the same model. So then it asks you to do relation.name. So it's pretty helpful with this error handling. So if we do format again, it's successful. And then we could do a push. And there we go. And if we go to post, now this report user, report, I keep saying report, repost user ID. We could go back to the view. Maybe that's a good idea. Change my mind midway through so we could show how to change it. So we do reposts. We would have to change our query as well. In our hook. So you have to differentiate between the repost user. It's still referencing, they're both referencing the user model, but they're referencing different fields of the repost user ID and the user ID. So you can see if we go to repost user ID and user ID. So you have to clarify that in your query now, which does certainly makes it a lot more complicated. But now we should be able to go to, yeah, let's comment this out because I forget the syntax. So let's console log item. Okay, so let's find where the repost user is not null. Okay, this one right here. So see how, say we got null down here, so there should only be, let's check the database actually. There should only be one, yeah, there should only be one post with the repost user. So we could reference it as item.repost user and then .username. And it's joining on this repost user ID. So repost user down here. If item.repost user exists, and then we do reposted by repost user.username. There we go. I don't know why I added a space down here. But I'm going to add reposted by mx2. I don't want mx2 down here. Oh. So I want just the username to be bold. Okay, so you could say reposted by Tim. And if you wanted to, now you could click on that person, but you could see who reposted and then, oh, it, okay, so we got to fix, so see how that's what disappeared. So that's what the space is. Now this item.user, we changed it to, what did we change it to? Okay, undercase user.user ID. So that should be an easy fix. Wherever I can find it. Oh, user. There we go. Okay. So now we can see who reposted it. And then putting this in the same table allows us to just query based on time, no matter when it was created, because maybe this was only reposted 1 day ago. But so, okay, let's try. We need to make this whole thing scrollable. But let's say this was a couple days ago, but we want to resurface this. Be like, okay, I thought that was very interesting, or it was reposted a year ago, and you could resurface it, and it's still a post, and the person still retains all their information. So this, whenever we do have an avatar, it would still show their avatar, their username, their content, their original post. It wouldn't show the comments. So this one, yeah, we have to fix this query now. So since we really changed a lot on this query, because it still says on thread, so it's no longer user. Although I think I wonder if we just do this. User ID. I don't know if that'll work. I don't think, do any of these have comments? Okay, let's double check this actually. 1, and then add a thread, 2, 3. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're getting different error. Failing row contains null value of. Is this the same error that we were running into before when it doesn't always carry over the right username? No. Okay, so code failing row doesn't have a user ID. Post provider. Update post. Okay, I think this use effect just isn't always getting called. So maybe in this map, so if ID equals ID return, and you could do user ID equals user ID. I definitely want to clean this one up because I don't love this already, but I want to see if it works. So that only gets called once. Update post gets called every single time you run anything. So let's try to create another post. You do 1, 2, 3. User ID. User ID. Okay. And then let's just do the same post. Okay, this is actually a bug we created in a previous episode, but glad we're fixing it now. There we go. And then the whole purpose of this was to make sure it still shows the comments. Yeah. Okay. So now we still have to fix this as well. So in the thread, let's go to post view because it's still using the same post view. Because our query that we're passing in here is different than the query that we're using. Got it. Okay. So we either need to update this to capital U for user, or update the use thread. So see how one is capital and one's lowercase. So if we were to reload that, oh wait, we need to do this one too, if we wanted to do that. Okay, so we got, and now we have username. Since the view is actually using a query from two different, we probably could combine these to make sure it's consistent, but whatever it is, it has to be the same format. So you can do either uppercase or lowercase, but it has to be the same on both of them. We did a lot more than I thought we were going to do. So we got, the main part of this was to be able to like and unlike, which was honestly the easy part. And then being able to repost a post. So we click that, and now we can do repost, and then this one should not show any comments because it's a reposted version, but this one should. Yep. Okay, so there we go. Reposting, likes, unlikes, and in the next episode, we're going to maybe start creating the actual search and profile pages to be able to click on some of this and get to see more information. So hope you join me for the next one. Peace.